let's have a look how this tool called Palette Gear can help you in the editing process. Hey, my name is Piotr Toczyński. Cut to the Point channel is all about mastering film editing, about streamlining the editing process so you know what's the point of every cut you make in the story you want to tell. Before we start, a short disclaimer. I received the Palette Gear Expert Kit, so I wanted to thank the company for sending it to me. However, I didn't get paid anything and I'm free to say whatever I want, and I will tell you my honest opinion about this tool. Here is the structure of the video, so if you're here for a specific information, you can jump over to a given timecode. If you have never seen this product before, you probably wonder what it actually is. Basically, it's a customizable panel that lets you control applications or even operation system. It's dedicated to a number of programs including Premiere Pro, After Effects, Photoshop, Audition, Lightroom, but you can actually use it with some limitations with other apps as well. At the end of the video, I'll tell you my honest opinion about who is it for and who wouldn't gain much from using it. There are 3 ready-to-buy kits and the one I received is from the middle shelf. In the box there is a core, which is a brain of the palette, 2 sliders, 2 buttons, 3 dials, USB cable and 2 stickers. I must say that the build quality is really solid. It snaps together very nicely thanks to magnets on each side, and you can configure it any way you want. It doesn't move around on your desk, which is very important as well. I've been testing it on daily basis for past 3 weeks, and what follows are my impressions about using it for video editing in Premiere Pro and for other video related tasks. I won't be going into all the details about the configuration since there is plenty of videos that cover the topic already, but the installation process is pretty easy. You need to download the software from palettegear.com, and you can actually download a beta version which is even more powerful from palettegear.com/beta. More about it in a moment. Then for Premiere Pro you just go to Preferences and under Control Surface you need to add Palette plugin, and actually you're ready to work. First, let's have a look at the button. Of course, it's best for the things you can toggle on and off in Premiere Pro and other apps. I used it for linking and unlinking clips, for enabling clips, for ripple deleting and for adding edit point to all tracks. To configure it this way, you open Palette Gear software and under Premiere Pro mode there are all the options available to you. So for example, for clip linking, it allows you to perform the operation very quickly. Instead of right-clicking and choosing the option, you just press the button. The default shortcut for it is Ctrl+L, Command+L on Mac, which is not very handy. Of course, you can customize the shortcut, which I always recommend, but even in this situation I have found that having a button you can hit very easily is a nice advantage. Actually, I must say that hitting that button feels really good as well. There is something nice and physical about it that can't be replaced with a simple shortcut. I think it makes perfect sense for shortcuts for which you need 2 hands. As an example, in the selection process, I like to move the best takes to a separate track. For the most powerful clips, I like to move them up by 2 tracks. The shortcut for it is Alt or Option plus arrow up, and I do it with 2 hands. By using keyboard mode, you can assign this shortcut to a single button, and it really makes a difference in the selection process when you use it again and again. And now the most powerful button feature. In the beta version there is macro mode. Soon it will be available in the regular version of the software as well. It may be there already when you're watching this video. It lets you assign a sequence of keystrokes to a single hit of a button. Just imagine how powerful it can be. Let's say I would like to move the selected clip up by 2 tracks, change its color label, adjust gain by 10 dB and slow it down to 50% with ripple editing on the timeline. Now you can do it literally in the blink of an eye. By the way, I cannot recommend enough the book by Walter March that carries the title. Check out my video about the concept of eye trace to find out more about it. As you can see, it can be a really powerful feature. The fun fact is that after creating the macro, you can set custom name for it and even the color that will be used for highlighting that button unit. Really cool. But you can ask yourself, okay, how many things can I actually control with it? After all, there are only 7 controllers in my kit, which is not that many. So the way it works is that you can create profiles. Each profile is like a completely new set of controllers, and you can circle between them in a few different ways. You can either go to palette gear up and change the profile there, or you can assign a function switching to a button or a dial. By the way, there is also a community page where you can download profiles created by others or contribute your own profiles. But to be honest, I'd like to be able to switch a profile with a keyboard or a mouse without leaving Premiere Pro. That would be great. Is it possible? Will it be? I feel like profile changing takes one of the controllers away from me. Of course, it's a great feature that makes Palette even more versatile, but I just have a feeling that it could be solved even better. In the beta version, there is a preview layout feature that will help you a little bit with remembering the layout. Okay, let's have a look at the dial now. There are even more uses for a dial in Premiere Pro. I ended up using it for a jog and nudge, and I really like how smoothly it works. Basically, jog moves the playhead on the timeline when you use a dial. It's very responsive and it moves with different speed depending on how quickly you rotate, and if you press and rotate, it goes through the timeline even faster. I really like how precise you can be and how quickly you can move at the same time. Nudge works very similarly, but instead of moving the playhead, you are moving selected clips on the timeline. By the way, you can also adjust sensitivity of a dial when you open Advanced option. Next use for a dial that I really like is X and Y position. Positioning graphic elements is kind of pain in the ass, and you need to switch between the timeline and effect controls panel constantly. But using a dial for that purpose, you can position your graphic elements very precisely without leaving the timeline. Pretty cool. I used it for Lumetri color adjustments as well, and when you combine it with profile switching, it becomes really powerful. For example, we could assign contrast to a dial, and by changing profiles, you can actually control the whole Lumetri color panel using only palette gear. Next feature I tried for a dial is using it in keyboard mode. If you assign Ctrl plus Alt plus right to the right turn, Command plus Option for Mac respectively, and Ctrl plus Alt plus left to the left turn, you will basically change this dial to the sleep tool, which moves the in and out point for the selected clean within the timeline without changing the edit points. The thing to remember here is that it's not as responsive as jog and nudge features, because we're using keyboard mode, which is not going through palette plugin acceleration in Premiere Pro. But for me, in my opinion, it still does a decent job. Sliders probably get the longest to get used to, but there is a lot you can do with them, especially when you control the range for them in advanced settings. For example, I used it to control the scale of a clip. Let's say you have a 4K footage and you work on 1080 timeline. The real useful range for a scale is between 50 and 100%. And now it's very predictable where you need to move that slider to accomplish, let's say, 70% of scale, and moving between the low and high end is extremely easy. The best thing is that you don't even have to leave the timeline to adjust the scale, and you can keep your eye on the footage while changing its value. I used it for opacity as well and for track volume. It's really cool, especially if you use it in the right mode on the track. It will add the keyframes automatically, and basically you have an audio level controller in real time right there on your desk. And of course, Lumetri color adjustments are a great example of how to use sliders in Premiere Pro. The example with the contrast for a dial works here as well, and actually when you set the range, it's even easier to control it. And of course, as you can imagine, sliders are extremely helpful for photo editing, let's say in Lightroom. That's it for the examples how to use palette gear in Premiere Pro, but obviously there are more ways you can use it in your workflow. It's a pity we cannot mix Premiere Pro mode with keyboard mode for a dial, but maybe it will be possible in the future releases of the app. So what are the biggest advantages of having this tool on your desk? First of all, you can perform 2 operations at the same time. For example, changing exposure and saturation simultaneously. Secondly, you can do it keeping an eye on the footage instead of the values in the panel, and you don't need to switch between the panels all of the time, which is very nice. I must say, however, that there is definitely a learning curve, and at the beginning you may actually feel that it takes you longer than using traditional way. But once you play with it for a few days, everything becomes more intuitive and you can really become more efficient. Also, I think that if you're really used to your own shortcuts, it will be difficult at the beginning as well. It was for me, but after 3 weeks, I must say it's a great help for working in Premiere Pro. Not something that you cannot live without, but it makes work more efficient and enjoyable. I especially like a macro mode for the button, and I actually regret that there are only 2 buttons in my kit. I feel that 2 additional buttons would be enough, and macro feature would be even more powerful in After Effects. I will definitely give it a try the next time I'm working on some visual effects project. Also, I love the fact that you can control other apps with it as well. For example, in the future video, I'll be reviewing a great app called Kino. And I created a profile with keyboard shortcuts for this program. You can even use macro mode for buttons in Kino. So who is it for? I would recommend it for Premiere Pro, After Effects, Lightroom, Photoshop users who use these programs consistently. I feel like once you go through the learning process and getting used to it, it has all the advantages. But I wouldn't recommend it for someone who is more colorist than editor, and working with color is a huge part of their job. In this case, you should invest in something like Resolve Micro Panel or Tangent Elements Panel right away. Even though these are much more expensive tools than Palette Gear, for color grading you need a dedicated control surface. Also, for someone who uses these programs but only from time to time, let's say few times a month, I don't think it would be that much of a help. Check out the link in the description to learn more about Palette Gear. Once again, this is my honest opinion about this tool, but for the full disclosure, if you use the link in the description, I will get a small commission at no additional cost to you, don't worry. I just use their affiliate link because I really think that for people like me, it's a great tool to have. I'd love to have you subscribed and hit that bell icon so you don't miss out on new videos. Smash the like button as well, and I will link the Kino review somewhere here once it's published. It was Peter, until the next time, shoot and edit like there is no tomorrow.